Christmas time, mistletoe and wine.
Hello and welcome to this very special edition of Movie News here at MBE. Just like to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. And today we are going to be breaking down our top 10 all-time Christmas films. Now, John, do we want to just get right into this? Yes, I think we should. Let's do this.
Yes!
We've not had any drinks so far, or mince pies.
That's
so
a lie, Stephen.
Well, I've not. I can't speak for you, John. But we're going to just kick on in no particular order. We didn't think it was right to sort of pigeonhole these films into 10 through to 1 with best.
We couldn't decide.
Well, that's the thing.
We're very indecisive people.
Exactly, John. And we were very indecisive about the first entry. That's Home Alone / Home Alone 2. Yes. Now, the reason for that, John, is that it's basically the same film in a different setting. Yep. But we felt it was necessary to mention Home Alone 2 for two reasons. It's a great film, and it's got Tim Curry in it as well. Yes. So that's the reason we're including Home Alone 2. But, John...
And Donald Trump. I thought he was president of the United States.
That's a good reason for not mentioning
America.
It. But Home Alone was obviously released on the 7th of December 1990, 30 years ago, John. It's celebrating its
when I was but a pup.
30th anniversary. And this was directed by Chris Columbus, and it was written by the late, great John Hughes, starring Macaulay Culkin, I've not had a drink, seriously, Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern and a whole host of other
Wait till I try to say Chevy Chase, Stephen. Chevy.
Great.
It's not Chevrolet. It's not
actors. John Hurd's in there, the late great John Hurd. Yes. Catherine O'Hara. You've also got Hilary Wolff, a very young Hilary Wolff in there. John Candy, the late great John Candy as well.
Paid $1 million to make a cameo.
For a day's work. Amazing. That's the pull that guy had at that point. But John, this is a film, you've said it, I've not said it, but you don't regard this as an out-and-out Christmas film, although it is set around Christmas.
No. Steve, I'm going to contradict myself later on when I also speak about Die Hard, which shock horror is in there.
Yeah.
Because that's not a Christmas film either, but I'm going to call it a Christmas film. It's set in Christmas. It clearly is. It's a Christmas film. I'm talking absolute nonsense, Stephen. It's a Christmas movie. It's a Christmas vacation. He's left alone. It's Christmas. It's set in Christmas. It's a Christmas movie. There is no doubt about it. Completely ignore what I says previously. I'm talking shit, guys. But look, Stephen, this is a fantastic movie, man. I grew up watching this. Of course, I didn't watch it on its initial release. I was only, depending on the specific time in 1990 it was released, I could have been under 1 year of age.
It was December,
so I was 1 and a bit years old then. So a little bit young. But growing up in the mid-90s, I watched this movie many, many times. I think I've seen it perhaps 24 times, if not more. It's every time it come on, you watched it.
Yeah.
Really, and it's for all the aforementioned reasons that you also mentioned, funnily enough. That's hence why that aforementioned. Chris Columbus, I've not had a drink either, guys, I assure you. But when this rolls, because guess what? This isn't live shot horror. I will be in a coma through food and drink. So it's kind of just preemptive drunkenness that's sort of slipping out here. But
John,
look,
that's why I'm glad this is not live, because at some point we're going to have to do a cut so I can take this bloody hat off. I'm absolutely sweating here. Absolutely sweating.
Stephen, Chris Columbus, John Hughes, match made in heaven, an amazing director. Yeah. Directed the first sort of Harry Potter, maybe the first 2 Harry Potter movies too. There's a magical element to this guy's movies. And John Hughes, what can you say about John Hughes? A stupendous writer involved in the likes of Uncle Buck, wasn't he? Breakfast Club.
Yeah, all those great
80s movies that had that vibe to them. Yeah, just watchability, you're too keen because it's great writing, it's great characters. There's a 3D-ness sort of to the world. Yep. And then you add in the acting talents of a young Macaulay Culkin, a sort of tour de force of the 1990s, really. This guy is ever eternal, young Macaulay Culkin. I know he's old now.
Yeah,
I don't know how he's 40. He's not that old then. I'm being harsh on him, but he's older than what he was here.
Yeah.
But he'll forever be that age. He's sort of like a mummified young guy now to me. And then Joe Pesci, not Pesky, Joe Pesci as Harry. And then obviously Daniel Stern as Marv. Both very old now, Jesus Christ. Yeah. Daniel Stern terrifies me. He's got a beard and it's white. What is going on with the world? But with the wet bandits in this one,
they wear the wet bandits.
The wet bandits. Yeah. Stephen, just unique, man. It was the only really home invasion movie, and still is really the only home invasion movie alongside Home Alone 2 that's been done right. It wasn't really a home invasion, was it really? That was a sort of... What was it? It was a home invasion. Yeah. But there was hotels involved. Stephen, it was the only one that was really done right for me. It has got that element, that rewatchability. It's smart. It's kind of believable. This little guy could do this to these two goons.
Yeah.
And then it is, and at the heart of it is, it's got that great Christmas story. And as you mentioned as well, the late John Hurt, I still can't believe that guy's dead.
Yeah, I liked him.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
And then, as we were speaking about, is it Kathleen O'Hara? Screaming, we can't do that high sort of...
Kevin! I can't. Yeah, amazing.
I've not got the Rona.
John,
yeah,
the only person that can do a higher pitch scream is obviously Daniel Stern when that tarantula's put in his face. But the second movie as well, for Brenda Fricker as well, who played the pigeon lady, she's the sort of shovel guy of this that film, you know. That's what I'm saying.
Guy.
It's almost it's a similar vibe to it. It's the same message you're getting from it as well. You're
Who
right.
was the shovel guy?
I can't remember his name, John. He's passed away as well, sadly.
Surprised me.
But I mean, it must have been a good age 30 years ago. But he played a big part in that film, and it was
it's
a
like
good message.
Dogs. Back in old movies, you just say they're dead right away.
Yeah. Any film from 1920s.
Oh, Steve and I went back
totally
and I watched Vikings with Kirk Douglas. And incredibly, I looked the guy up and he was still alive at that point. I'm like, what is going on? This guy's 103. 2 people are still alive from that cast. It's extraordinary, but we're getting sidetracked here.
Extraordinary. Yeah.
Extraordinary.
So, John, that's how the reason we pigeonholed both Home Alone and Part 2 into the same sort of segment here, because they are the same film, more or less.
Yeah.
It was just more of an update. The message is the same. The template's exactly the same. You filthy animals. Everything's the same. Tim Curry, for me, was a standout for the second movie. Who was your standout for the first one?
Standout would have probably been
Joe Pesci, maybe?
Probably Joe Pesci, yeah. One of the wet bandits. But Macaulay, you can't write off
Macaulay
either.
was fantastic, wasn't he?
He was, and obviously, but yeah, probably Daniel Stern. He was the one that got the tarantula on his face, so that was probably the standout moment of that movie. And funnily enough, the standout moments of the second movie are probably Daniel Stern as well, being hit with the brick. The flour, I think, the powder goes over him, he gets burnt. He gets hit with the paint can.
Yeah.
Everything happens to this guy, really. But of course, Pesci, I think he gets his hair burnt or something.
And then he puts his head in the toilet, which is full of petrol. Yeah.
And Stephen, that just typifies these movies, why they're just brilliant. It's just laugh a moment, really organically sort of engineered as well, these moments in these movies. The acting's really, really good. It was John Hughes again in the second one. It was Chris Columbus. Dream pairing, really. And yeah, Stephen, it was a sort of rehash, just like Die Hard rehash, but it's done well, so it's a nice rehash, and it has that rewatchability again. I like the two of them evenly.
I'm the same, John.
And
equally,
I don't even mind Donald Trump being in there.
No, I don't care. I don't care. Yeah, you know, it added to the sort of feel to the film as well. Tim Curry being the hotel manager, I think.
Just like, was great, wasn't it?
We love you, just great, absolutely. A young Rob Schneider in it as well, playing the bellboy. But it was just a great film, John. I really enjoyed it. I didn't think they could really live up to the expectations of the first one, and in a kind of way, maybe they didn't. So they replicated the sort of formula from the first one into the second movie. But we'll move on to the next film, and before I do that, John, it's worth mentioning to the viewers that I've not seen all of these 10. You've not seen all of the 10, but
sadly,
between both of us, we've seen them all.
Yeah.
The next one we're talking about, I've seen it. I know you've not, but
I was going to watch it, but I just didn't have the time.
No, that's it. It's Scrooged
From
1988. This was
Bill Murray.
Directed by Richard Donner and stars Bill Murray. Karen Allen as well, from obviously Indiana Jones fame. John Forsyth is in there. A whole host of names. John Glover as well. Bobcat Goldthwait from Police Academy, well known for that, for the strange voice. Carol Kane, Robert Mitchum is in this as well. I forgot he was in this, John. A legendary actor. But John, I'm not going to really get into it too much because I know you've not seen it yet, but
Steve,
I think you can guess from the title of this film, the sort of story. It's a modernised version of, obviously, A Christmas Carol, with Bill Murray playing Frank Cross, is it? Frank Cross, yep, my memory's working with me tonight. He is the sort of Ebenezer Scrooge as a film producer. And this is right down Bill Murray Street, you know, playing that sort of cruel, authoritative figure in the film.
Likeable.
Yeah, likeable, very much like Phil Connors in Groundhog Day. You know, that's just right down Bill Murray Street. Peter Venkman and Ghostbusters, having that sort of nasty humour about him, but people that he's been nasty towards aren't aware of his nastiness. You know, he does it in a way, it's a very cute way he does it, very funny way as well for the audience. But it was a great film, John. I really liked this. It's a film I do go back to every now and again. It's got that rewatchability about it, which I like. It's just great. It's possibly
Donner.
dated a little bit with the sort of visuals, with the ghosts and stuff like that, and obviously the fashion. It was very late 80s sort of fashion as well.
And I'm just struck with the director. I cannot
Donner,
believe
yeah, he's a fantastic.
Kojak,
Yeah,
The Woman,
Yep.
Superman 1 and
the
2.
Goonies, yep,
The Goonies.
yeah,
Scrooged, Lethal Weapon 1 and 2.
yeah, he's a
Lethal Weapon
fantastic
3.
director, John.
Just unbelievable.
Amazing, yeah.
Hit after hit after
And
hit.
I remember when it came out, I was 12 when it came out. I think I maybe have seen it the year after. And from then on, every couple of years, 2 or 3 years, I do go back to this round about this time of the
I need
year.
to watch it because,
As-
as you did say, I love Phil Connors from Groundhog Day, and if this is Scrooge meets Phil Connors, Frank Cross, right up my street, I
Yeah.
have to watch it. I don't know why I've not. I'm 31. I should have seen this.
Yeah.
There's no excuses, and it will get sorted, just like
Yeah.
Die Hard gets
It's,
sorted.
it's an amazing film, John.
Yeah.
That's why it's in there. Scrooge, 1970, is our next entry.
What a cast.
Yeah, it is, John.
Wow.
Yeah, funny, this film came out long before you or I were even on this planet, but it's got Albert Finney and Alec Guinness in there, a few others, Kenneth Moore, Lawrence Naismith as well. The list goes on. Anton Rogers,
Yep.
Gordon Jackson, Roy Kinnear. A great British cast. I saw this film.
For a great British story.
Yeah, this was the first film I saw Albert Finney in, and this was the first iteration of the story that I saw on this big screen as well. Well, it wasn't the big screen, it was the television. Alec Guinness as well, out with Star Wars. I hadn't seen any of his films at this time. Now, I was only maybe
Bridge
about
Over the
8 or
River
9 at the
Kwai.
time. Bridge Over the River Kwai was
Yeah.
probably too young to see that, but I knew him as Obi-Wan Kenobi at this point. He's not got a big part in it. His presence is big, but his part isn't as big as Albert Finney, obviously. Albert Finney is obviously playing Ebenezer Scrooge. Again, it's a great story, John. David
And a
Collins
musical.
is playing Bob Cratchit, as I remember. And yeah, it's just a fantastic film, John. It's a great way to introduce it to a young audience as well. I know there's been various forms of this film over the years. It's probably one of the most remade films and remade stories, I should say, of all time. Charles Dickens classic. If you've not seen this, John, I don't know if you have. I think you're kind of wary whether or not you've seen it.
I vaguely recall seeing it, Stephen. I don't know if I've seen the entire movie through, but
Yeah.
looking at the images, it rings a bell. I think I have definitely seen it, Stephen.
Yeah,
There's
it's
no doubt,
just one
because
of
that scene there when he's going through the crowd, I've definitely seen that scene.
yeah.
Definitely.
Albert Finney,
Yeah.
an amazing actor as well, John. But we're going to move on to our next entry, and this is National Lampoon's. It's called Winter Holiday. We call it Christmas Vacation
yeah.
over here in the UK. But
Just-
this came out in 1989, and it was directed by Jeremiah S. Chechik. I don't really know him. Again, written by John Hughes, who we were just talking about, and stars Chevy Chase, Beverly D'Angelo, Juliette Lewis, and a young Johnny Galecki is in there as well, John, playing Rusty. This was the thing about this Griswold's family. The kids always changed.
Yeah, recast.
They were always recast. But in this case, Juliette Lewis and Johnny Galecki, very well-known names now.
Yep.
I don't know if they were such then, but another great film, John. Randy Quaid, obviously playing the cousin, coming back into Cousin Eddie. And Diane Ladd's in there, John Randolph. The list goes on. It's just another classic Griswold story, isn't it?
It is. Stephen, look, the best scene in this for me is the light scene.
Yeah.
Because being a courier and driving around, I see so many Griswolds houses, and it just takes me back to this movie every single time. It's classic Chevy Chase. There's something about this guy. When did this come out? 1989. The guy disappeared after the 80s, like a lot of prominent actors, Dan Aykroyd and stuff like that. He didn't really disappear, but he fell out of prominence. But my God, when he was in the 80s, there was very few people funnier than this guy. And just the Griswold family, the National Lampoon franchise, if you can call it that, stupendous. Laughs a minute. Was it European Vacation when they went to the German household?
Yeah, that was great, yeah.
It's just something about this guy, this character, this family. They're dysfunctional. And he's sort of the head of it, and he's forcing them to do things they don't want to do, and he's at the brunt of doing things that shouldn't be happening, but he does, again, the lights, and he's flicking the switch, and it's...
There's something about Clark Griswold that I always love. It's that forced enjoyment that he puts on his family. They must enjoy themselves,
It's accurate.
even if they're not that bothered about Christmas. He forces them to. No, it's a very special event. The other thing I'll say, John, is although I do like the film, it's probably my third best National Lampoon's film in the
First one for
Vacation
me.
series. First one, Vacation, and then the European Vacation, and then this one.
Yeah. Stephen, it's still a great movie, though. It's a timeless Christmas classic. And again, John Hughes, man, I mean, this guy just knows how to write amazing movies. He knew how to write amazing movies. And again, you did. Randy Quaid's great as a cousin. He's come back, and he's just like, there's something about that guy as well.
Yeah.
He's a character. And a young Johnny Galecki, as you did say, incredible.
Yeah.
Leonard Hofstadter.
That's it, yeah.
Himself.
From Big Bang, yeah.
Fantastic movie, Stephen. Right up there for me.
Yeah, definitely. There's another one that's right up there for me, John. I don't know about yourself. Santa Claus the movie from 1985. This is a great film, John. It's more nostalgic than anything from a personal point of view. Do you know Schwark directed this? Stars Dudley Moore. John Lithgow's in there. Still making great films. David Huddleston as well, who played Santa Claus. Dudley Moore, for me, one of Britain's, legendary actors. I know, it's absolutely, it's killing me, John. It's so itchy.
I'm laughing at your hat and I'm wearing this.
Burgess Meredith, John, who played Mickey, obviously, in the Rocky franchise, is playing the Ancient Elf. I didn't know that. I've seen this film maybe 20 times. It's one of those films when I was growing up. I was 9 when this came out.
Yep.
My sister and I and my brother, to an extent, who was only 5 at the time, watched this every Christmas. It was great because it starts off with the origins of Santa and how he became who he was. I think he was St. Nick at this point. But it's also got that message of commercialisation of Christmas as well through the Patch character played by Dudley Moore. There's also what do you call him? Christopher Ryan, who played Mike in The Young Ones, and Dave Hedgehog. He plays one of the elves, surprisingly. Just by physical appearance, you can tell he plays one of the elves, but he has a non-speaking part, but he stands out a mile. There's other names in there as well, John. Melvin Hayes as well from the sort of Carry On films. He plays Goober, one of the elves as well. A very small part, but it's a good film. It's a good film for families as well. If you're wanting to introduce Santa Claus story to kids, they will get some enjoyment out of this.
I'm looking at the images, and it does ring a bell.
It probably does, John. It's on mostly.
I do wonder how many of these movies I've seen and just subconsciously as a youngster and not taking it in.
Well,
I like the concept. What you say is the sort of satirical look at the commercialisation of it, moving away from the more spiritual side of it. That's an important message to get out there. Sadly, it's fell on deaf ears because it's not changed anything.
No.
But
it certainly doesn't. That's just
nice to try anyway.
Capitalism for you, John. Well, we're going to move on to our next entry. We're halfway through now, John. It's The Muppet Christmas Carol from 1992. Brian Henson directed this, and it stars Michael Caine. Kermit Frog's in there as well, surprisingly. Miss Piggy, the great Gonzo.
Not Bob Cratchit, it's Kermit the Frog.
Yeah, Frank Oz obviously does a lot of these voices as well, with Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear, etc. John, this is a film I've only seen once, so you're going to have to help me out in this one.
It's been a long time since I've seen it, but
it's Michael Caine that stands out for me in this performance, and it must be very hard for classically trained actors to be interacting, obviously, with Muppets.
Steve, it's a Charles Dickens movie, though, that story, and any classically trained actor is going to be drawn to that story, but just because of the origins of it.
Yeah,
a great writer. And it was just taking the Muppets. The Muppets are generational. Everyone seems to love them, no matter the generation. It took that story and it revamped it with the Muppet sort of skewed side of things, the perspective. And it was something about this movie. I just watched this about probably a dozen times growing up.
Yeah.
Absolutely obsessed with it. Watched it every single year. Sometimes when it wasn't even Christmas, I was watching it. And it's just because I grew up loving the Muppets. I love Kermit in particular. I really did love him. It was scary how much I love Kermit, really. And obviously all the gang were there, and it was a classic Dickens story. We've mentioned Scrooge umpteen times, really, and that is Scrooge, and I'm not tripping out my nut. The Muppets, it's a story of Scrooge. Carol, it's been retold in so many different versions that it starts to sort of muddy the waters. But it's done something different. It was for a different generation, a younger generation who perhaps couldn't connect with the previous incarnations, and it certainly worked with me. It got me interested in this Dickens story, and it's something I've enjoyed many times over my childhood. Not so much recently though. But I'm looking at the director, Brian Henson, and the name does ring a bell. I'm trying to think.
It's Jim Henson's son, I'm pretty sure.
Labyrinth.
Yeah.
Muppets from Space. He's done umpteen Muppets movies. Treasure Island was another one I shouldn't have liked because I was 10, but I did.
That's the one with Tim Curry.
Tim Curry,
that's great.
Long John Silver.
I can't remember the one Billy Connolly was in. But it's a long-standing joke with Billy Connolly. He always dies in every film that he's in. A bit like Sean Bean, but he says, I even died in a Muppet movie. And nobody ever dies in a Muppet movie.
Did Sean Bean not get killed with a cow at one point?
He did die. Billy Connolly didn't though.
Sean Bean, yeah.
But we're going to move on, John, to our next entry. And it's from 2003, and it's Elf, and this was directed by Jon Favreau, who's keeping himself busy with Star Wars at the moment.
He's
but
revamping the whole franchise.
Back in 2003, he was doing this little film called Elf,
Yep.
starring Will Ferrell, James Caan, and Bob Newhart. Bob Newhart obviously appeared in The Big Bang Theory of late as well, playing Papa Elf in this. Buddy, played by Will Ferrell. It's a great film. Peter Dinklage is in this film as well, as I recall. Zoe Deschanel and Mary Steenburgen as well. It's a great cast, John. Fantastic cast. It's another great story. Kyle Gass is in there as well, from obviously what they called Jack Black's band.
Tenacious D.
Yeah, they're in there, and it's just a great film, John. 7 out of 10 on IMDb. I remember when this came out. I think it maybe have been 2 years after it came out. I saw this. It was definitely in the mid 2000s. I missed the boat on this when it first came out.
Yeah.
And that's why I said this little film, and I wasn't playing a sort of pun on Elf or anything. It didn't sort of connect with me when it first came out. I don't know about yourself. Once I saw it, though, I went, this is a great story. It's a great message as well, like most Christmas films, but something about Will Ferrell's performance in this, obviously, as your man Buddy, just sort of...
an identity movie, Steve.
Out of his sort of comfort zone, try to find an answer.
And that's Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
He brings his sort of trait. I'm touching legs here, that part of my jumper. Very straight. I feel like a Wallace and Gromit movie here, or a skier. Stephen, it's just classic Will Ferrell. Energetic sort of acting. He was at his pomp at this point, really. It was round about Step Brothers. I'm pretty sure it was round that era. And this guy is just hilarious, man. There's something about him. He's quite deadpan when he's doing interviews and stuff like that. You put him in a leading role in a movie like this, it's ridiculous. He's so big. He's 6'3.5" or something. He's got this elf costume on. He's clearly not an elf. And he's going through an identity crisis in this movie, and it's just a great Christmas flick. And you put the directing talents of Jon Favreau in there. He's a great director. He's directed a lot of brilliant movies. Yeah. Jungle Book, Lion King remake that everyone hated. I think he's done Iron Man. He's done a whole array of different kinds of movies. And he can get performances out of people. You mentioned the cast, Mary Steenburgen and James Caan and Zoe Deschanel, I can't say her name, Peter Dinklage. It's a great cast, but really the star of the show is Will Ferrell, and it's all about him. It's his story, and he's just amazing, absolutely brilliant. I don't know if I actually watched this movie when it initially came out, I can't lie, but I've certainly seen it in the ensuing years, and I've seen it when I was still young enough to maybe get something out of it, maybe mid-teens or something like that.
Another film, John, I've watched over the ensuing years, probably ensuing decades, is Gremlins from 1984. That's our next entry and our third last film we're talking about. Directed by Joe Dante, or Dante. It stars Zach Galligan, who follows us on Twitter. Thanks for that, Zach. Phoebe Cates, obviously, we know her from Drop Dead Fred with Rick Mel. Definitely that's time of night. But Corey Feldman is in there as well, who I've always liked.
Honesty!
So, John, Gremlins, it's out of this top 10, it's another one that could be debated as a Christmas film. I always get the feel for Christmas. I think it opens with that. It's the song from Phil Spector from his Christmas album, Christmas. I can't remember what the name of the song is called. But
is it the Ramones one? I don't know.
No, it's not. It was what was it? It was the Ronettes, I think. It was, and it was like it filmed in Hill Valley Square. Yeah. You know, they used obviously the back lot of Universal. Gave it a snowy appearance to give it that illusion of it's not set in California, and it's just a great film, John. I still think visually it's not aged terribly. Something about these puppets that just
Steve, that's the
terrify
sort of,
you, you know.
The technology, the hybrid, practical, sort of digital technology from that era, the likes of Terminator. It does ages much better than the out and out CG. Yeah. Sort of bonanza flicks from the mid-90s onwards, and even as you did say, the sort of puppetry, when it's done right, it doesn't age really badly. And this was a movie I grew up watching again, mid-90s. I was semi-terrified of this movie as a young child because it was an absolute wimp. I mean,
that is the horror element to it, John.
I watched Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street, Arachnophobia, movies like that, Tim Curry's Pennywise, mini-series, but this was the one that kind of spooked me. I was absolutely terrified of Freddy Krueger as well. I'm a lying shit. But there's something about it, Stephen. It's a great little story about these little creatures, man, and
following the rules. How to look after them,
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, I think it's water.
Yeah, don't get them wet.
Don't get them wet, and it's a certain time of night or something.
Yeah, don't feed them after midnight and keep them out of bright lights as well.
And they don't do that, and they absolutely multiply. Like
Yeah,
a
the
virus.
water makes them multiply, and the eating after midnight makes them morph from a mogwai into a gremlin.
Yeah.
And
Great.
they become crazy. But
Is it not great, man?
it is. It's a fantastic
Because I
film.
remember growing up in the 90s and trying to get Gizmo.
Yeah.
I recall trying to get the toy
Yeah.
out of Costco or something like that back in the day.
Probably a hard
Strange
thing to come by at that
was.
point. But, John, a great film, 7.3 out of 10. It's one of those films that they had to do a sequel for it. You couldn't blame them for doing that. The success of that original movie. I know Gremlins 2, the new batch, doesn't get the sort of same well-received, plaudits as the original film, but I still do like a new batch as well, or the new batch, because Christopher Lee's in it, and anything he's in I love.
Yeah. Stephen, look, man, you're right though. Before we move on, 'cause it does something quite unique in mixing the horror, with the fantasy elements, and a Christmas set.
It is, yeah.
So it wasn't an out-and-out Christmas movie, of course. It's just set within the confines of Christmas, and I'm to blame for this, putting this in this list. Incidentally, it was me that put these in.
Oh, that's a good one.
So-
It's a good one, yeah.
But for me, it is a Christmas movie. There's presents getting
Well,
passed
John,
about.
for
and
you and for director John McTiernan,
yes,
he's confirmed over the last few days that Die Hard is a
Mr.
Christmas
McLean.
movie. Yeah, and oh my God,
Oh my God,
You're
you're
one
one
of
of them.
it's so
Oh my
quotable.
God.
John McTiernan,
Biter.
John McTiernan, director, has
Schnell.
confirmed that this film wasn't originally made as a Christmas movie, but the feel of it and the sort of way it was received after its release, it became such a hit.
Yeah.
And the reason for that, it's strange,
Finishes
it
with a
was
Christmas
released on 3rd of February 1989, so it was 10 months before Christmas. But there is something about it, John, and it does, you're right, it finishes with, is it Sinatra? Let It Snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And it's,
obviously it's the dust off of the building.
and obviously the Christmas party happening in the Nakatomi. I was about to call
Nakatomi,
it the Dakota there for some reason, but it's definitely
Because
the
there was a John
Nakatomi.
Lennon documentary on down the stairs,
Yeah,
Steve, before we started this
Yeah,
show.
I wouldn't have watched it, but it was on. But yeah, stars Bruce Willis, Alan Rickman, Bonnie Bedelia. We've already reviewed this, John, on our show a few months ago, so we're not really going to get into the ins and outs of how this film obviously plays out or anything like that. You can watch that video if you like. But talking about the sort of Christmas theme to it, I've never really regarded it as a Christmas film myself, but I think it's one of those ones you take it as how it feels to you. Yeah. A lot of films like that, you talked about Home Alone, John, you could really place that storyline anywhere in the middle of the year if you like, it's because it would work anyway. This film is very similar to that. The situation of an office party could happen any time of the year. Yeah. A retirement party, it could have been in the Nakatomi, and it would have been the same thing. It played out. Yeah. But it's just those little elements in the background that give it that Christmas feel. And I can understand why a lot of people get that sort of response and that sort of feel to it as well. Yeah. Sadly for me, I don't. I just love it as an action film.
Stephen, ultimately it is just an out-and-out action movie. It's quite coincidental. It's set, as you did say, round about Christmas. It's not get it out in itself as a complete and utter Christmas movie. I'm absolutely obsessed with these legs, incidentally. Keep clutching them. It's not sort of painting itself as an out-and-out Christmas movie, just circumstantial that it's set around about the Nakatomi building in the midst of Christmas. That, to me, and also the Let It Snow, as you did say, Frank Sinatra at the end, that makes it a Christmas movie for me. But it's really just about Hans Gruber, John McClane, two of these guys battling against each other, trying to outwit each other. Mr. McClane, and just an amazing, one of the iconic villainous characters, and I'm absolutely ashamed I didn't watch it until this year, but look, well up there for me.
Yeah, definitely is, and it's obviously it was Alan Rickman's first feature film as well, which still amazes me to this day because his screen presence.
Theatre though, wasn't it before that?
Yeah, it was theatre before that, and English television. He was made for the big screen, this guy. He would go on to have this amazing career, obviously, in the Harry Potter series Snape, as well, and other films as well. But it's just something about his presence in this film. It's not very often you can upstage Bruce Willis in a movie. He's just got that kind of presence himself, especially in an action film. But something about Alan Rickman just takes it to another level. He's such a menace in this film, and I love it. We're going to move on, John, to our final entry in this top 10. It's been a great chat about these Christmas films, really getting back and reminding me how great these films are that I've maybe should go back and revisit as well. Here's one I've not watched, surprisingly, and I'm
I'm
Tim,
amazed by that.
it's Tim Burton who wrote it, but it wasn't him that directed it. It was
Henry
Henry
Selick,
Selick, and it stars the likes of Danny Elfman. This is all voice work, I would assume. Chris Sarandon, Catherine O'Hara, obviously from Home Alone fame and Beetlejuice, reuniting with Tim Burton, who wrote it. It's The Nightmare Before Christmas, which came out in 1993. I was 17 when this came out, John, and I don't know why. I've never seen it. I've never really been that interested in seeing it. Something's really strange and creepy about that little onion head. I don't know what that is. A skeleton or something?
Yeah.
Skellington, I think that's the character's name, is it not? Jack Skellington. You've seen this film, John. I don't really know. Do you think I would like this film? Is this something that I would... No, okay.
No,
8 out of 10 on IMDb.
Not
So
that
it's not
a bad
film.
movie, Stephen. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It's just a generational movie. And obviously, by the time this had came out, you were obviously beyond that kind of movie, which is fine. It's absolutely fine. We've seen the likes of Bill Burr speak about that, about Star Wars, that he was of a certain age when Star Wars came out, that he was more focused on other kinds of movies and in other
Fair
things,
enough,
so it kind of passed him by.
Yeah.
This would be the same. I was 4 years old when this came out, so directed at my demographic, absolutely. And it was, as you say, it's Henry Selick, and another great movie made by Henry Selick. He directed stop motion, similar vibe, James and the Giant Peach, one of my all-time favourite child movies. I watched that movie endlessly. It was like Labyrinth with my sister.
Yeah.
Again and again and again and again and again. So something about this guy, Henry Selick, and his work with stop motion just had a sort of an affinity with me. It connected with me on some level as a child. There's something wacky about it. And again, it's that sort of fantasy, horror-ish, but it's not horror. It's not horror. It's not like Gremlins horror, but it's that vibe. It's Halloween town. It's a skeletal figure, but it's wacky. He's sort of like a stick insect, and it's weird, and it's brilliant. It's Tim Burton. Yeah. Tim Burton just adds that dark vibe, and he does it well. It's like Edward Scissorhands. It's like all the, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's Christmas. It's Tim Burton. It's Henry Selick. It just works. And then you look at the cast: Danny Elfman, Chris Sarandon, Catherine O'Hara again of Home Alone fame. Great cast, man. Brilliant, and it's the acting was on point. And it looks, Stephen, it's sort of generational again, even though it was the early 90s. I see this movie continuing on. I see the sort of artwork and the imagery of it continuing on. So it stands the test of time, and it deserves to be on the list for me.
Definitely, yeah.
Absolutely. But look, that's going to round it up.
Yeah,
we're going to round up our top 10 Christmas movies ever. But was there ones we missed, perhaps? I know there was Miracle on 34th Street or something.
Yeah.
I seen the modern day remake, but not as good as the original. By all accounts, a little girl from Matilda was in it. There was a few others in there that we've perhaps missed.
Yeah.
Last Christmas, apparently very good, with Henry Golding and Amelia Clark. Perhaps you can share below
The
some
Christmas
of
Chronicles
your...
as
The
well.
Christmas Chronicles, yeah, you watched them recently, didn't you, Stephen?
They're
That's
good,
Kurt
yeah.
Russell. Maybe if we've missed something and you believe it should be in there, you can tell us maybe about that. But what's your thoughts on the top 10 that we chose? Maybe you get some critique in there to perhaps give us, share with us. Do you disagree? Do you agree? You can comment below if you've got anything to say. You can also like the video if you've enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. But look, guys, until then, have a very Merry Christmas. I'll not say a Happy New Year because we will be back between Christmas and New Year, but have a Merry Christmas. Don't get too comatose with the drink, and enjoy the food, man, because I know I will be. But look, I'll be enjoying it right now. I'll be in this midst of this moment, absolutely comatose. But look, guys, bye bye.
Ho ho ho.
Ho ho ho.